Hello and welcome back to the Dahlia Society. Today I'm going to take you through two dresses that I have recently made, and they are both Starlight patterns. So I'll tell you some pros and some cons. Now recently I spoke about some patterns that I was looking at on the Starlight side. I hadn't actually made any Starlight patterns before, so it was very new to me. Now two dresses I had recently made in the Starlight patterns. Firstly was the Montana dress. Now that one I've made in a rayon from Spotlight. I'll pop some photos up of myself in this and a bit of video footage. I absolutely love the dress. I think it's the most comfortable floaty style summery dress that you could really possibly wear as far as comfort and ease of wear goes. I think the style is very forgiving. It would suit a multitude of body shapes. The pattern comes in size 6 to size 30, so it's very size inclusive. And the pros and cons, I would think, of Starlight patterns. I've had a lot of people ask me if I'd sewn them before, and the answer was no. This is the first time I'd actually sewn from the pattern company. I'd heard a lot of talk about the actual patterns themselves and people wanting to know what I'd thought about them. So I'm going to talk you through a few pros and cons and what I think of the actual patterns myself. Now, the two patterns I've chosen, the other one is the Lacey dress, which I'll also put some photos up of this one as well. This one's got a really interesting shape. The bodice is done a really different way, so I'll talk you through that next. As you can see, the Montana dress, which was a free pattern for December, I think if you bought one pattern, they would let you choose from the 2 free patterns of the month. So every month they do have that bonus. So it's a really great way to save money on patterns, to pick up a free one. If you really love the pattern that's on offer for free, it's a great time to buy another pattern and maybe to keep it on standby. So that way you're really getting more for your dollar. The Montana dress, I love the shape of it, the fall of the skirt, how it's not too full and gathered at the front. It's just got that little bit of gathering, which is just enough to fall nicely. The bodice, you can actually make it 2 different ways. You can make it a double layered bodice that you can, when you turn inside out, it has that really clean finish lining on the sleeves and on the neckline, so you don't have to worry about facings. Or if you would prefer to do it just a single layered bodice to save fabric, you can do it with a self-bias binding. So that's your own option. You can choose either way there. It doesn't change the look of the dress that much, but I think the double layered bodice gives that beautiful clean finish. So I went with that. I preferred that myself. The maxi dress style one I made from 2.7 meters of fabric, of a 135 width fabric. That was enough, but it is very important to read through your pattern instructions, because I didn't realize you needed to do 2 layered bodice. I just cut out the one of each, and luckily I had enough fabric, because that's what happens when you don't read patterns through from start to finish before you start sewing. So it's always a good idea to read right through from start to finish, look at all the options they give you, because you possibly could end up with not enough fabric to do that. So I just think it gives it a beautiful, clean finish. The Lacey dress has a little bit less fabric. I think we did it just for under 2 meters of fabric. I'll give you a little bit of a close-up look at the Lacey. They've both got pockets, inseam pockets, which are optional. The Lacey has not got quite as much gathering as the Montana, but it has got the almost like kimono sleeves that are sewn onto the bodice, so they have got like these seam lines that run down the shoulders, give it a really interesting look. I've seen this work beautifully in a self stripe. I've done this in a really fine cotton rayon check. This is also from Spotlight. You can do it in a wide gingham, looks fantastic. And I've seen, as I say, people make it in a stripe where they do the middle bodice panel in the horizontal stripe and the vertical stripe on the sleeve and the skirt. So they sort of mix and match the stripe design, and it gives it a really a lovely lovely look to it, an interesting feature. So you can also do mix and match prints. So if you wanted to do like a fine floral with a gingham check or a stripe with a check, you could do that as well, because it allows you to be quite creative. Or you could do a plain bodice front and a pattern sleeve. So I think it's great when you can start mixing and matching patterns. It gives the a dress a really unique feel. So if you're feeling creative, this is a really good dress pattern to start with. Now, I think the pros for Starlight pattern would definitely be the variety of patterns that they have on board there. There are virtually hundreds and hundreds of patterns you can choose from, which gives you a great extensive range of different body shapes, different sizes, as they're very size inclusive as well. Also brought in with their patterns just recently the multi-size pattern, which they never used to have. They used to just have, you put your size in, your measurements in, and you'd print your own size out. But a lot of people had requested that they actually bring in multi-size in case their weight had fluctuated, or if they wanted to make patterns for other people in their families as well. So I think that's a great step, because I personally like that feature. Even though I say that, I actually decided just to put my own measurements in and print out the straight size 14s. So they had plenty of ease in them. These dresses in particular, being that sort of drop waist gathered with the pockets and the gathered skirt, have so much room in them. I don't think you need to worry about fittings. The only thing I was worried about was the bodices, and they also had plenty of room as well. So I'm really glad I nearly made the 16, because I always tend to do that when I'm not sure of a pattern designer and the way they fit. This time I decided to just go with my gut, choose a size 14 and just wing it. And I am glad I did that, because it would have been absolutely huge, especially around the shoulders, as I usually have a bit more of a narrow shoulder. So even though I might need a room in the middle, I'd always sort of think the shoulders, it's going to really affect the style of dress if you go too big up top. With the Lacey dress, I actually had to take it in a little bit in the seam. So once I tried it on, I realized it was way too roomy. It's a boxy style dress, but it was way too big up top. So I just went along these shoulder seams again and took a little bit in on each one, the front and back, and it brought it in just that smidge to give it a little bit more streamlined look. But really, really happy with the way they both fit. But yeah, the pros would be definitely the style advantage of having so many different style at your fingertips, and having the fact that you can choose multi sizes is another great feature. Another pro would definitely be having the free pattern of the month. To get to choose a free pattern. Size inclusivity is another pro. I think it's definitely a very inclusive sizing pattern company. Being an Australian company as well, I always like to support an Aussie company that's maybe not as well known as your big four or other indie patterns that have already sort of been out there for a while. So there's quite a few people on Instagram that I know are a real ambassador for Starlight, and I've talked about Birdy Sew Obsessed before. She's a big ambassador for Starlight. So if you ever want to get any Starlight inspiration, look at Birdy Sew Obsessed Instagram. That's the pros of Starlight, which there's quite a few positives. The negative side of things, I don't like to give a negative spin on any pattern company, but I really like to give a true and unbiased opinion. If I'm telling you that I believe in a certain pattern company, I'll tell you what I believe in. If there's negatives, I'll also tell you about that as well. Negative side of Starlight, I think they maybe need to look at the way they set their patterns out, in particular their instruction side of things. I think a beginner sewist would possibly be very thrown off by what they see in the instructions and their lack of instructions. Although a lot of their patterns are very beginner friendly in the basic style of them, with these two dresses, they are fantastic beginner patterns. But I think that if you hadn't sewn before, you could possibly be turned off by the fact that their instructions are very limited. In particular, if you had never done like the burrito method style top, the way they explained it was very, very limited, had limited visuals, limited diagrams. The instructions were also very limited. What I didn't like about it was when you can either print out your sheet of instructions. I'll put a little picture up so you can see. The print is so fine. I swear you would need a magnifying glass to read it properly. And that can be quite a challenge for someone that needs to wear glasses like myself. So I thought I'd go onto the computer and look at the instructions on the download form. What should have been like a landscape pattern printout was actually like a portrait. So it was all basically side on. So you either had to flip it around and enlarge it that way. So it's sort of a little bit more mucking around than what it should be. I think really the pattern instructions could have been on a couple of different pages, because you'll have all your sizes and your measurements and all your instructions all on one piece of paper, which is kind of ridiculous. I think they need to look at enlarging their print and elaborating on the kind of instructions they're giving. And really, they're targeting, to me, beginner-friendly dresses, but they're targeting a person that would be more of an intermediate sewer as far as the instructions go. I think they're just assuming most people that read it would know how to do certain things on there. So I think pattern companies need to look at that. And a lot of the big four patterns, it's the same thing. People will get thrown off by their lack of instructions. And that's why indie patterns, to me, will always be far superior in their instruction booklets, the way that they, go from start to finish. They walk you through and hold your hand through a pattern. I think it really doesn't take a lot more effort to expand instructions in a beginner format. So that is my one downside to Starlight. It can be a very scary thing to download a pattern and then read it and think, I have no idea what I'm looking at here. Put it away. I won't look at it till I'm more advanced. It's a real shame, because, as I say, these are really beginner-friendly sews. So yeah, I think if you are more of an intermediate sewer, you won't have a problem. You will just sail through these patterns. But if you're a beginner, I really think it's something you need to maybe read through a few times to get to know the basics. And if there's something on there that you haven't seen before, maybe look it up on YouTube. Certain things like the burrito method lining, how to understitch, things like that. They don't always explain fully in layman's terms or beginner terms. Now, in saying that, as I say, I really love their patterns. It hasn't turned me off buying any more of their patterns, because I love that variety, to be able to look through a whole catalogue of patterns. You might have 40 or 50 different styles of pairs of pants, and dresses, and then they'll have so many knit style patterns, which is really, I find, a hard thing to find. If you're after a knit pattern, how hard is it to look up knit patterns? When you do that, when you do your looking around, you're Googling, you put a knit pattern in, not a lot comes up. There's always more wovens, I find. So they have a great variety of knits and wovens. I like the fact that they also bring a lot of tailored style things into it that are quite hard to find sometimes as well. And I like the casual kind of vibe to a lot of their clothes as well. So you've really got a real contrast between the casual clothes and the really highly tailored dressier kind of clothes. So you'll find really a bit of everything on Starlight. I think you will find exactly what you want on there. I think sometimes just the instructions are a little bit lacking, but I'm sure that that you could maybe teach yourself a few of those methods before you go on to looking for those patterns. But yeah, don't be turned off by looking on Starlight. Another thing I'd seen recently on a forum was that their downloads only last for 14 days after you purchase them. So I know a lot of people will purchase a pattern and not download it instantly. They'll just wait. And there's a reason for that. I think it's something to do with the security on their website, that they like people to download them immediately. So if you're thinking of buying a Starlight pattern and you're worried about that, download it instantly. Always think about using like a cloud kind of hard drive too. If you've got a lot of patterns that you store on your computer and something happens to your computer, like a cloud like Google Drive will store all your patterns in that cloud, and you can always access them later on. And the thing I like about having Google Drive is if you've got an iPad or an iPhone that's compatible, you can keep them in your drive, and while you're sewing, you can maybe sit your iPad next to you and use that. And it saves printing out instructions, so that saving ink is always a good thing, because we all know how expensive ink can be. So don't always just print out all of your instructions. Keep them on file, like in a downloadable form. And what I usually do is I'll print the first page of the pattern out with the actual design of the dress, and put it on a manila envelope and put the pattern pieces in that. So pop online, have a look at the Starlight website, and have a look at your free pattern of the month. Always take advantage of that, because yeah, if you can get something for free, it's well worth it. Speaking about free patterns, I have got an episode coming up in the very near future. I'm going to be doing a lot of different free patterns. We're going to be doing one per episode, a feature of, in particular, like maybe a free skirt one episode, my favorite one that I've sewn. I'm not going to just give you free patterns if I haven't made them. I want to make sure that they are particularly like a favorite garment of mine that I've made that I know fits really well too. So I'm going to be having that coming up very shortly as well. Yeah, look into the instructions. I know I rotated the pattern diagram around with the instructions that way so I could read it more enlarged. And I also like the fact that you can print off layers. If you can print off an Acrobat reader form, you can print off the layer and the size that you want to print. And that will then, that you won't have to worry about printing out like 10 different sizes and just cutting out the one. So that can also be a big time saver as well. Or as I say, you can also print out you can order just your own size. It's really up to you how you want to go about that, but it does give you the option for both. Don't forget, if you liked what you saw here today and you want to see more of my episodes, click the subscribe button and the notification bell and you'll see when new episodes are coming up in the near future. And if you liked it today, a thumbs up would be great as well. Now, if you liked what you saw today and you'd like to support my channel, I have a Ko-fi account, which is what most YouTube and most creators do have, that can support financially towards their creation and content. And it's really just, as in coffee, it's buy me a coffee. So that's totally up to you. I have a couple of people that have generously donated towards that in the last couple of months. So I really appreciate that. And that way I can give you more quality content and more regular episodes coming out in the future. Thank you so much for watching today. Much appreciated. Keep the comments coming. If you've sewn with Starlight before and you like what you've sewn, please let me know. And also let me know, or let us all know, the patterns that you love. If you've had any problems with Starlight before, also comment about that as well, because I always welcome suggestions and comments after each episode. So it's very valuable. Thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.